Hey everyone, it's ENDYMION, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons, as well as how companies are refusing to let go of the agenda, despite losing trillions in their crusade, and how they are instead doubling down further in the future. Firstly, we have Hasbro, which owns Dungeons & Dragons, getting publicly lambasted and cooked for essentially destroying and throwing D&D away, claiming that the original creators were racist and should be ashamed of themselves. To catch you up to speed, Hasbro released a collection of stories from when D&D was first created. It's called The Making of Original Dungeons & Dragons 1970 to 1977. It details how the franchise was made by its creators while also, unfortunately, allowing new age editors to give their opinions on how things are perceived today. A user on Twitter, who I'll just call Michael for simplicity reasons, shared a few pages of this book to convey exactly how Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro view Dungeons & Dragons as a legacy when placed against the wokeness of today. One of these people who seems to hate the very thing he works on is Jason Tondro, who is a senior game designer for D&D. So these pages that the Twitter user Michael shared are of what Jason Tondro thinks of the two creators of D&D, who are, in case you don't know, Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, who are, yes, both white guys. By the way, so is Jason Tondro. Here's a part of what Jason Tondro said in this book that threw shade at D&D's creators, and I quote, "Some language in the first iteration of D&D presents a moral quandary. The documents reproduced in this book include many pages of charts and tables alongside lists of monsters, spells, and magic items. But that game content also includes a virtual catalog of insensitive and derogatory language, words that are casually hurtful to anyone with a physical or mental disability, or who happens to be old, fat, not conventionally attractive, indigenous, black, or a woman. Some people have charitably ascribed this language to authors working from bad assumptions. In the 1970s, historical wargamers in America were predominantly white, middle-class men. It isn't surprising that they would dub a class of soldiers the Fighting Man. But when in the pages of Greyhawk, the description of the Queen of Chaotic Dragons includes a dig at women's lib, the misogyny is revealed as a conscious choice. It's an unfortunate fact that women seldom appear in original D&D, and when they do, they're usually portrayed disrespectfully. Slavery appears in original D&D not as a human tragedy that devastated generations over centuries, but as a simple commercial transaction. The cultural appropriation of original D&D ranges from the bewildering, like naming every 6th level cleric a llama, to the staggering gods, demigods, and heroes, not reprinted in this book, includes game statistics for sacred figures revered by more than 1 billion people around the world. Despite these shortcomings, D&D has always been a game about people choosing to be someone unlike themselves and collaborating with strangers who become friends. It has slowly become more inclusive, and as the player base has become more diverse, the pool of creators who make the game has expanded to include people with a broader range of identities and backgrounds. As these new creators make the game more welcoming, the game has attracted new fans who, in turn, continue to make the game more inclusive. The future of Dungeons & Dragons here, at its 50th anniversary, is bright." End quote. As you heard, the D&D creators are once again being attacked for being something that they cannot change, which is being white men. I find the attack on white men especially to be exhausting and horribly stupid at the best of times. I've documented before how D&D's creators have been attacked like this with similar passages from this book specifically. The point here is that making the creators of something so beloved seem like they were evil simply because of their skin color is disgusting. This is the industry-wide mantra working as intended. Everything we love for a large percentage was made by white men. It just was. It's not racist to admit that. Star Wars, Marvel Comics, D&D, and more, they were all created by white guys who went on to make things that have clearly outlasted their own lives. But unfortunately, as time passes, we're also seeing the cultural revisionism in full swing, where things made by white men are co-opted by self-loathing white people who then in turn hire people who aren't white to come in and change the things these guys made in hopes that one day they will eventually overrun and rewrite the history itself until the names of Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson are no longer synonymous with the creation of D&D to begin with. If these people had their way, in 50 years, some random overweight black woman would be credited as the actual creator of D&D. Not because she actually did anything of note, but simply because the people who control these franchises are weak morons and want to apologize for something they can't control, nor should they. Apologizing for your skin color is stupid regardless of who or what you are. I think believing that white people are somehow the root of all evil is ridiculous, considering that a lot of things in the modern day that we have is attributed to many white inventors. I'm not saying this to be like, oh, white people are the best or anything, but why are we shying from the truth of things when it comes to how things came to be? The internet, electricity being discovered, and even things like D&D, it's all white guys. I think this all comes from a self-loathing root of jealousy in the end, that other people are mad that they weren't responsible for making the thing that they like. So instead of making their own things, they just shame and bully others until eventually they get to control the thing that they like. It's stupid in my opinion, and slowly over time as this pathetic mentality has run rampant, we're seeing things getting replaced that never needed to be. Even in games, Peter is no longer the main Spider-Man, it's Miles now. Even though nobody who plays those games wants Peter to be sidelined, and clearly the sidelining didn't work, since Spider-Man 2 currently has sold about half of what the original game in 2018 did. The point here is that this is all meaningless, being pushed by out-of-touch morons who want to be patted on the back by people who genuinely couldn't care less if they dropped dead tomorrow. For example, to pivot here for a second, let me prove this all to you. From Fandom Pulse, Dead by Daylight developer allegedly forcing employees to undergo Wheel of Privilege DEI training. So Behavior Interactive, which exists within Montreal, Canada, because of course it does. It's the same place where Ubisoft and Sweet Baby operate out of as well, has a nonsense training DEI program called the Wheel of Privilege. As you can see from their company website, they have quite a few games under their belt, and they have also worked with other studios on stuff like Gears of War 5, Mortal Kombat 1, Immortals of Avium, and even Call of Duty Vanguard. It's safe to say that this studio works with a lot of people across the board. This Wheel of Privilege is the exact kind of thing that I'm talking about that gets made by these out-of-touch white people to shame other white people into compliance. And by the way, this Wheel of Privilege was created by, you guessed it, a liberal white woman because who else would, right? Sylvia Duckworth is the name of the person who made this stupid Wheel of Privilege, which as you can see on screen is designed to categorize and separate people based on various things that they can't control, like their skin color for example. As you can see in the middle, being white or not being overweight as slim is clearly visible here is considered to be things that give you power, which according to these liberal white women is a bad thing. That's right, being white and slim is racist now. Of course, as you go further out the wheel as seen here, being a man is considered powerful, a woman is less powerful, then being trans or non-binary is now in the most outer ring of power. Meaning that they are apparently, according to this wheel, the weakest and least privileged people in this wheel. Which makes no sense because besides one other group that we all know of, the trans community is the other most protected group of people in the world right now when it comes to the backing of corporations and governments. And they are given jobs, benefits, and more at a staggeringly high rate than plain men or women are. I already detailed in a previous video that Obsidian hires people based on gender and skin color with the whole art director nonsense that's going on. So how are white men the most powerful when they are constantly overlooked or attacked, like even in the D&D situation that I explained earlier? And yet the trans and non-binary people instead are overwhelmingly getting hired and placed in positions of power that they haven't earned through merit but by simply existing. How is any of this okay? It's not, by the way, and proves that this wheel and this Sylvia Duckworth lady are grifters. As YouTuber Smash JT showed on Twitter, this Sylvia Wheel of Grifting lady has various books shaming white people, and specifically uplifting black people exclusively. Of course, she sells these books to pander and grift off the liberal sensibilities of other white people. So this Sylvia Duckworth is genuinely being paid by companies and making money through pushing actual propaganda down the throats of people into making them become more compliant. And this is the same sort of poison that is within D&D and Wizards of the Coast at large too. This overall concept that if you are white and especially straight, you're evil. You're the devil. You need to be erased and you shouldn't exist. But if you're anything besides that, it's all good. You're amazing, and you actually should replace the white people because something diversity and inclusion reasons. Smash also shared that this Sylvia Duckworth also has books targeting children that push concepts like transgenderism on kids at an early age. And this is the same person who works with Behavior Interactive, which again works with Microsoft-owned IPs like Gears and Call of Duty. It's a gigantic web of lies that permeates almost endlessly in every direction. And it's this level of mentality, this mind poison if you will, that is killing these companies and their games at a staggering pace. And despite the mass backlash from the common people against this mind virus, according to Fandom Pulse's article here, companies are still committed to pushing the agenda regardless. And this now brings me to the meat of this video. Yeah, I know, quite a bit of setup before we dived into it, but it was all necessary. So this article, which is written by various so-called industry specialists, claim that DEI will survive and will evolve over time to keep pushing the agenda. As it states here, are companies still using the DEI acronym? Given the controversy around DEI, some companies are reassessing the use of the acronym to mitigate the risk of backlash. Last year, 99% of companies included some form of the acronym DEI in their sustainability reports. While still high, this figure has declined to 94% in 2024. Notably, of that 94%, the percentage of companies that now prioritize inclusion by placing it first in the acronym has risen. There has also been a noticeable addition of culture or belonging-focused titling instead. So these companies, as you can see from this graph, are instead trying to use variations for DEI because of the backlash it's been getting online from many people, understandably so. In case you don't remember, like 2 months back, I was told by a source when it came to Assassin's Creed and other stuff, that companies would start changing their messaging and how they portray trailers when marketing their games going forward. The reason for this is to hide the intent of the product's true aim behind misleading trailers that paint a picture that tell the player that the product they're buying is actually something they want when it really isn't. A good example of this is how Veilguard marketed itself versus how it actually ended up being. The point here is that what I was told was bang on the money because these companies are going to find new words and terminologies to keep you confused and ill-informed. It's sort of like how they're now using the term bridge to replace certain other buzzwords, but it means the exact same thing. The article further conveys that around 97% of companies are still pushing for DEI regardless of the financial and societal backlash it has received. A reminder from a few videos ago that I did that this chasing of the agenda has resulted in trillions of dollars being wasted and lost by investors in the chase of wokeness or bridge, DEI, whatever you want to call it. And regardless of this, they're headstrong no matter what, and now from 2023 to 2024, this dedication to DEI has actually increased by 32%. While, as you can see in this graph here, things like company-specific categories are being used less. This means they're not likely going to separate people into, say, LGBTQ+ or Black employees so openly anymore. Yet the intent of what these groups represent and what they require will still be nurtured behind closed doors and kept relevant. They will simply just not be as open about it publicly is what this means. But as you could also see from this huge graph lines here, the company-specific reporting has increased about 20% from 2023 to 24 already. Then you have this graph here ranging from 2021 to 2024, showing how companies have begun to more openly embrace and showcase their reports on the diversity within their workplaces becoming an absolute priority. And I mean, you don't need to be a genius to see the numbers rising staggeringly high in such a short period of time. But things of course get weirder as shown here in this part of the article. Companies are still hell-bent on ensuring that DEI is kept as one of their top priorities, as it says near the bottom here. DEI goals such as goals for hiring from historically Black colleges and universities and for investing in underrepresented communities. So this is these companies going completely mask off and confirming that yes, they are indeed going to be hiring people solely based on the color of their skin exclusively going forward. And they single out Black people from Black colleges, which is crazy to be one of their highest priorities. Notice how none of the things explained here talk about merit, talent, or skill. It's just identity. That's all that matters. And this is why I started with the D&D stuff and the Sylvia lady with her wheel of grifting, to show you how these companies are absolutely going out of their way to remove and replace the history of what is true with what they want as their new perceived new normal. Then, for example, you have this graph here called Targeted Talent Programs. What does this mean? Targeted talent programs are just another HR way of saying exclusive scholarships for people based on their gender or ethnicity. So as you see, 67% of companies are still pushing this idea. Pretty much it means that when these companies do paid scholarships at their companies and so on, they are going to go out of their way to only offer these scholarships to non-white applicants only. So if you're one of these black students at a black college looking to score a job in corporate, then you can get a job almost guaranteed simply because of the color of your skin. And even if another potential employee is more certified for the job, their skin color and gender will get taken into the equation when it comes to the hiring process. So as you can see, despite investors calling for the end of DEI as I covered a few videos ago, many of these companies are instead rejecting these claims and continuing down the path of financial self-oblivion. So why would they do this, you may be asking, but really because I'm the only person talking in this video? The simple answer is that these activist cultists truly do believe that if enough time passes and these things get pushed enough onto you, then eventually you will simply cave in. If everything around you is rainbow flags and whatever else, it will become the new normal. And once that happens, you can't reasonably reject it because it's too accepted now. Although the actual sobering truth, at least, is that these things are being overwhelmingly ignored and rejected, and it is resulting in trillions and billions of dollars being lost. And it will, eventually, just become a race to the financial bottom of the barrel, so to speak. However, we do need to realize that schools have been raising generations of kids that have become subjected to these very ideas from young ages for quite a while now. And I would wager that companies and such are hoping that once those kids grow old enough to become adults and then enter the workforce, then by say, I don't know, 10 or so more years, these ideals will then be far more accepted then. While that could be true for some part of the younger generation, we do know that young men especially are actually becoming overwhelmingly conservative as they get older, and I mean, can you really blame them? When society and all the propaganda constantly pushes against them and hates them for simply existing. I do think this constant destruction of things we love will continue, and it's important to keep calling it out. Of course, Elon Musk did make a comment that he wanted to buy Hasbro so that he could de-wokeify it the way he did Twitter and more. While this would be amazing, don't get me wrong, I kinda doubt that Hasbro would sell it to Elon at first glance. Although, to play devil's advocate, I mean, Hasbro has fallen on hard times especially. There was plenty of layoffs this year already that removed a lot of key talent, especially in D&D's side of the business. So Hasbro could eventually throw their arms up and just call it quits, and then if that were to happen, Elon owning Hasbro and D&D by association, that would actually be hilarious. Since he could easily just hire actual people who care to foster the franchises and reverse all the moronic changes that Wizard has made already, like turning all the orcs into Mexicans with big jaw teeth. That's real, by the way, it's on screen right now for you to see. And that's not even all of it. Wizards has even removed race-based penalties and strengths when it comes to the races within D&D, effectively turning them all the same. Here's what it says. The more familiar options have also been tweaked with an emphasis on removing weaknesses. It was also a bit of an oddity and presumably a leftover from editions with a different design philosophy. That some species had glaring restrictions while others did not. The Dark Elf sunlight sensitivity, which sure was a hassle when I played one, is simply gone like it was for Drow player characters in Baldur's Gate 3. The reduced speeds of gnomes and halflings is gone too. Both now have a speed of 30 feet per round like most species. Also, what the hell is the design here supposed to be? Are they just turning D&D into different colored people from Seattle now? This is so stupid. But yet again, the people controlling D&D, they clearly don't know who they're making this for anymore. If every race is the same, what's the point? If halflings have the same speed as humans, it makes no sense. They're smaller. They should have extra strength or defense or something instead, and claiming that all these races are the same is just lame. So then what's the point of having different races if they're all exactly the same in every way besides how they look? It's not realistic. A human should not have the same strength as an orc, and a drow should be faster than a dwarf, for example, for obvious reasons. I mean, the drow's legs are literally like twice the size of a dwarf for God's sakes. And as you can see, this has all gone off the deep end here. It's the same with Dragon Age Veilguard. Nothing is unique anymore. You're just making the same person but with different stuff. It's insanely lame. But that's what these people want. They want to homogenize everything and continue to push stuff until you eventually think it's all normalized so that you won't push back. It's not okay, it's disgusting actually, and it ruins any of the uniqueness of these worlds and their characters. Having dumb wheels that separate people based on supposed power that is then tied to their skin color or gender is just another reason why nobody wants this stuff anymore. These companies are losing trillions of dollars, and they are still doubling down and demanding that you accept the slop regardless. I do genuinely hope that Elon does buy Hasbro, because maybe then the Transformers can just be robots again and not push gender ideology onto children. And D&D can go back to being unique and like itself again. Everything is so watered down and safe that it's become pointless to enjoy most things. I hope these people who push these things learn the hard way, and I wouldn't be surprised if more layoffs continue to happen at Hasbro. They're making things for nobody, and it shows. As for attacking the creators of D&D claiming that they are racist or sexist, shame on you. Stop attacking the creators of things because of their skin color or gender. Stop being racist and annoying, which is likely impossible for them to do, considering what they believe in. And to the weak losers out there like Jason Tondro bending over to appease his diverse co-workers, by spitting on Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, just leave Hasbro. You're clearly a self-loathing activist anyway. D&D would be better off if you left yesterday. It's no wonder outside of Baldur's Gate 3 that D&D is dying and making little money these days. But that's what happens when you change your business to appeal to gender studies majors with septum piercings and colored hair instead. Maybe Starbucks is hiring, so these people can land on their feet somewhere at least where their skills make more sense. But as of now, these companies are not giving up. Should Elon Musk buy Hasbro? What about the D&D situation where these idiots are spitting on the creators' graves? Let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching, subscribe, thank you to my supporters, have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in the next one.